call the meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Over to Jessica for the board election results and the executive position announcements.
This Tuesday, the 20th, we had our annual meeting of members and board election results. The candidates who were elected are as follows: Kathleen Coughlin, Jason Lloyd, and Bob Brooks. And the official certificate is posted on our website under Elections Committee, as well as under our yearly financials, if anyone would like to go on and look at that. The board also voted today on chair position and vice chair. Chair is Jason Lloyd and vice chair is Jeff Hendren. Thank you.
Thank you. With the elections, we have a special parting gift for one of our members. Jerry, we appreciate the last 2 terms you served with us. You haven't missed. Go put it off until you're done. One of those is for your wife. Couldn't leave her out. Thank you. So thanks, Jerry, for your service. We appreciate you. Well, moving on, approval of the minutes Board of Directors regular session from April. I'm going to get a motion to approve. David? Second? Jeff? Any discussion, corrections? Nope. All in favor of those minutes? 9-0. Thank you. The next is the approval of the work session from May 15th. Need a motion to approve those, please.
So moved.
Thank you, JB.
Second.
Thanks, Sandy. Any changes, corrections, questions? No? All in favor? Thank you. 9-0. On to the joint advisory committees.
We're going to have golf go first.
Okay. Ms. Ruth.
This is the golf advisory for May 14th. April rounds, according to Daryl Muldoon, April rounds were down due to the Highlands course being closed for fairway renovation and 6 days of flooding. And if you watch the weather, we might have a few more coming, unfortunately. Range buckets are tending back up due to the opening of Tanyard Creek. Rounds ended at 16,428, down 3,195 over last April. Year to date are ended at 41,329, down 8,314 over last year. Range buckets ended the month to date was 12,974, up over 95 over past April over past year. April buckets were ended at 6,862, up 2,394 for last April. Daryl Muldoon participated in the PGA Hope lessons. What it is veterans who are handicapped or need help of something different to do, and they teach them to play golf, and it's a very rewarding experience, and they've done it. Daryl's worked with them for several years, and they had 18 they hosted this year, and it's very rewarding for everyone. If you've seen it, it changes lives, so it's very important. Maintenance, according to Graham Kornmeyer, May 27th and 8th, greens will be aerated in Scottsdale and Brittany. 4 truckloads of sods were applied on all courses, much less than the past year due to the fairways coming through the winter in better shape than they have previously. We received 18 inches of rain for April. Flooding and cleanup was needed. Sawyer springing is coming along, need more warm weather, 80-degree days, should see more green in the coming weeks. Putting green holes in Tanyard Creek have been asked why they haven't been cut. That's up to Reed Holly, who's in charge over there, and he will put them out when he thinks it's time to do so. Tournament season has begun. Couples Mixer still has slots available for people to participate. Operations 36 will start in June, men's, women's, and juniors, and they're filling up fast. Old business, Dave Armstrong and Jerry Foster, first term, 3-year term expires in June, and both have requested to stay on the committee. A vote was held to approve both Armstrong and Foster for 3 more years, and then both was unanimous, and I think it's brought to the board tonight to approve their positions. Gary Mertz had 2 terms, 8 years with the committee. He did a great job, but he's decided he's done. He's gonna move on to other endeavors. And so we thank him for his 6 years on the committee. And we now have 1 open position available, and revised application forms will be found on the POA website, and I understand it'll go out tomorrow that we are in need of 1 new member on the committee. Questions? Concerns? Let's hope it just rains a little bit. You bet.
The rec summary for the month, 3 terms are coming expired. We have 2 individuals that are currently on the committee that would like to reapply. They have not yet voted, so it's not going in front of the board just yet. It'll be appear in front of the board next month. JP has decided to not re-up, and so we will have 1 open position on the rec committee. Tom Judson reminded all members to vote in the upcoming budget or board election. Sorry. Rick Eccles reported that Norwood drawdown is complete. Brittany is full and pumps turned off. Ranger contacts were slightly up from last month, but down compared to last year. Weather related. Lake Bowie locations are being checked and fixed where necessary. All summer, lake rangers have been hired. 18 grass carp have been removed so far through the raffle. John Urquhart reported that there were 2 successful skeet and trap tournaments that occurred. Trey Anson reported that trail usage was the same last month, and Pedal Ford had a successful fundraising event at Blowing Springs to rejuvenate the volunteer effort. Roland reported that the pools have been health inspected and all is scheduled to open on time. Had 2 members attend and petition the committee to consider putting in handicap access to more trails in the area. Moving on from that to lakes. Lake Norwood is completely full after the winter drawdown, and Lake Brittany is also full due to recent rains. They have 2 openings that need to be filled. Scott Sporoff and Ross Gerner have both indicated they will not return for another term. Jeff Forte has agreed to be secretary to replace Carol Phillips. The kayak demo day was approved and it is scheduled for June 28th at Lake Ann. Lake Committee approved a grass carp tournament to occur in late September, early October, with the goal of removing as many as 200 grass carp, which will aid in the overall growth of our fish population. Creel surveys are currently being conducted, so if you get asked by a POA employee to fill out a survey, please do so. Lakes Ann, Rayburn, and Loch Lomond have been nutrient enhanced fertilized in the last 2 weeks, and Lakes Committee has approved Loch Lomond as the drawdown for fall 2025. And those are the reports for recreation and lakes.
Thanks, Tom. Beth, financials.
Hello. Okay, we're here to talk about April. I don't have any snow and rain on the slides this time, even though there was a story of flooding in April. For the consolidated month of April, the revenue was $3,659,000, which was just above budget and prior year. Expenses $2,652,000, which is a little worse than budget and prior year, and EBITDA came in for April at $482,000, which was better than budget and a little worse than prior year. Looking at year-to-date numbers consolidated, the revenue's just barely under 13 million, which is just a little under budget but better than prior year. And expenses, 9,875,000, which is better than budget and more than prior year. And EBITDA is coming in at 1,367,000, which is better than budget, worse than prior year. Looking at POA only, year to date, the revenue is 365,000 worse than budget and 21,000 better than prior year. Weather impact we're still recovering from the winter weather impact in January, February, and all the rain and flooding in April. Operating expenses were 177,000 better than budget and 773,000 worse than prior year. So EBITDA is coming in at a negative 50,000 year to date, which is 133 worse than budget and 869,000 worse than prior year. Looking at just the revenue for POA, you'll see that the actual has been under budget for most of, the year. It was almost there in March. Overall, it was in April, it was just under budget, but well over prior year. April's better than budget. As notable was the resale of lots of 38,000, and member ID cards were 7,000 better than budget. Notable worse than budget was golf revenue, 71,000. Again, all those closed days due to flooding. And F&B sales was 15,000 worse than budget. Operating expenses for April came in at 2,252,000 for the POA, which was worse than budget and worse than prior year. Notable better in April was salaries and wages, was 73,000 better, and maintenance and repairs was 19,000 better. Worse than budget in April, health, dental, life insurance due to high health claims was 49,000 worse than budget. Replaced some street signs, so it's 33,000 worse than budget. Recreation supplies, 22,000 worse, and 20,000 of that was the cost of stockfish, and that was a timing issue. Equipment and tools, 41,000 worse than budget, and that's just various summer stock up for maintenance, pools, beach, that kind of thing, and for Tanyard Creek and Gunridge opening. And the Tanyard Creek Practice Center opened April 4th with 6,862 range buckets in April, which is nearly 2,400 over last April. And also opening in April was the gun range, which had over 500 visitors. Moving to water, year to date, revenues 4,151,000, which is 348,000 better than budget and 477,000 better than prior year. Expenses are only 48,000 worse than budget and 88,000 worse than prior year. So EBITDA is coming in at 1,417,000, which is 205,000 better than budget year to date and 291,000 better than prior year. And there's the monthly revenue totals for the year to date for water. Notable better than budget in April was capital buy-in fees, new service connections, water sales, and there wasn't anything notable worse than budget. Water expenses for April came in at 400,000, which was just barely worse than budget and prior year. Maintenance and repairs and outside contracts were better. Worse than budget was again those health insurance claims and equipment and tools. Every quarter we have to file compliance ratios with Regions Bank. and one is the cash flow leverage ratio. The bank requires it to be less than 3.5, and we're very easily compliant at 1.6. The debt service coverage ratio, the bank requires it to be 1.25 or greater, and we're very easily compliant at 4.97. Looking at cash, water operating cash was 4.3 million, and the water reserves was 1,575,000. POA ended the month with operating cash of 1,564,000 and reserves of 987,000. Moving to the one pager, the POA without water year-to-date variance to budget. EBITDA is a negative 133,000, and water is 205,000 better than budget. The debt balances remain unchanged, and then you can see all the departments that are better or worse than budget to the left. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Beth. Okay, next on the agenda is open forum. Bob, you want to talk? No? We don't have any emails either, right? Okay. All right, so we don't have to have any responses. Waiver on the gun range, Tom.
So we completed the gun range. Our early estimate when we first started the project was $300,000, but we were pretty vocal and transparent that that was an estimate. We'd never done such a project before in the past. And as it turns out, the $300,000 estimate turned out to be a little bit low. We came out at $426,097.02. And we did make some adjustments to the project as we went along, and we learned more. I always like to point out, our best guess is if we had not done this in-house, this project would have cost us probably $1 million. We got it done for $426,000. That's something we can be all proud of. Because we came in so much more than the original budget, our governing documents require us to have a waiver. So we're asking for a waiver of spending more than what was originally budgeted for. Also, if you recall, previously the board voted to take out $300,000 from the emergency reserve to pay for the project, and we're requesting that we take out the remainder from the emergency reserve.
I move that we grant a waiver on the gun range project, which was originally approved for $300,000, but ended up costing $426,097.02.
Thanks, Joe. Second. David, thank you. Discussion on this one? Go ahead, Jeff.
Just to add to something that Tom said, there was also on that original estimate, did not include the bullet protection panels for the pistol range, didn't include archery range, and security cameras. So that all led to it costing more as well.
Jackie?
I have a financial question. The reserves that the POA has, the 987, is this coming out of there?
Yes.
So we would expect that to be 400 less after this?
We've already taken
It's
out
already
the
there.
300, have we? I thought
I was sitting here
we
trying to remember.
It seemed like when I
before you
looked at it,
asked
like
me.
250 had come out.
we will answer
It
that.
seems like
We will
250
email the
came out.
board and answer. I thought the
Previous
300 had already come out, but we will give you a
Regardless,
definitive answer.
we will expect that to definitely be lower next month by either the 126 or another larger magnitude.
That's correct, and I apologize, I cannot recall. I was sitting here trying to remember before you asked.
Anything else? All right, all in favor of the approval to grant the waiver? 9-0, thank you. I'll need a motion for the emergency reserve.
I make a motion to move the 126,079.2 out of our emergency reserves to cover the balance of the project. The board previously authorized the transfer of 300,000 out of emergency reserves.
Thank you, JB. Second, Jackie, thank you. Again, discussion? Nope. All right, all in favor? 9-0, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the pump at the country club. We originally had $10,000 in the operating budget to repair that pump. After it was taken out and inspected, it was determined that it was a total loss and that we needed to completely replace it for $28,265.12. We moved forward and did that work because that is the primary pump for the country club, and you know, if the pump is down and we have a heat, you know, very hot period, hot dry period, we'd be in trouble with our greens. So we were asking for an emergency capital project for that dollar amount, and also the possibility of moving some funds out of the emergency reserve to compensate for at least a portion of this. Also, I want to point out that the $10,000 that was originally in the operating budget, we will not spend. You know, we're not gonna spend the $28,000 out of emergency and then also spend the $10,000. That would be disingenuous.
Motion?
I'll make a motion authorizing an emergency capital project of $28,265.12 for a new irrigation pump for the country club. But I would like to authorize the $10,000 coming out of the operating budget, and the remainder coming out of the emergency reserves, which I'll have to make a second motion on that.
Second. Sanders? No second. Okay. Where do we go from here, Doug?
Motion fails.
Motion fails. Okay.
I move to authorize an emergency capital project of $28,265.12 for a new irrigation pump for the country club. It was understood that golf maintenance will not spend the $10,000 that was included in their operating budget, which was earmarked for the intended repair.
Big Jeff. Second on that one. Did you
Jackie.
second, Jackie? Yes. Thank you. I can't, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, unfortunately, the
Okay.
air filter's on right now.
No worries. Discussion on that. Go ahead, Sam.
The $10,000 was earmarked for the repair. I think it should be spent on the replacement.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Is that a yay? Okay. 8, all opposed? 1. Okay. Oh, we do, don't we? Sorry. So many motions.
Just for clarification.
Sure.
So there's not confusion. The difference in these two motions, the way I understand it, was that Sandy wanted us to basically designate and approve that we were reducing the operating budget by 10,000. As the board was basically saying the budget was going to be reduced 10, whereas now we are saying that we are not going to spend it, but we're not dictating that we're not going to spend it. Is that kind of just a little bit of a...
So the capital project has been, okay, so we've already spent the $28,000. The pump's already back in the ground. It's already operational. So the capital project is $28,000, okay? now we talk about how are we gonna fund that? Where's the money coming from? So, the motion that was approved 8-1 is acknowledging that we had a capital project and that we've made the commitment that we won't spend the money out of the operating budget. What we haven't done in the past, and I usually don't encourage us to do, is to go back in and to rewrite the budget based upon new events, especially for a $10,000 transaction, which the auditors would term as being immaterial. I'm not downplaying $10,000, I'm just saying that from a legal point of view, they would say, or from an accounting point of view, they would say immaterial. Based upon the email dialogue that occurred today, I would have no issue if on the second motion, instead of the original request for $28,000, we made it for $18,000, which reduces the amount coming out of the emergency reserve and being offset by on the operating budget side. Okay, so that's where the funding for it would come from for that project. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. If that makes sense, then we would need a second motion, which I have listed here.
I think your explanation makes sense. I'm fine how it's approved, but your explanation made sense.
Great.
So, just to be clear,
Mike?
you still need the motion for the emergency fund if we want to use it. All right, I'm gonna put it on.
Other than the change that has been contemplated is instead of 28,000, it would be for
18.
Well, to discuss it, we need a motion on the floor. So I make a motion to use $28,265.12 out of emergency reserves to cover the cost of the emergency project.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, JB.
All right, now we
Now
can
discuss.
do we want to go back to what we talked about in the email and keep the 10,000, do the 18? How's everybody think about, what's everybody's feelings?
I just don't think that we should take anything more out of reserves than we absolutely need to. And the 10,000 in the operating budget is what was earmarked for this.
So to be clear, so you don't think we should take anything out, or we should take the 18 out?
18. Two
Is that-
transactions.
Okay.
Or two accounts.
If the board is in agreement, then what we would recommend is you propose an amendment to the motion to modify the motion. Then there would have to be a second. You'd have to do a vote on the amendment, and then you have to do a vote on the now amended original. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
You draw a Venn diagram for that?
Exactly.
What thoughts? No, I agree. You agree with her? Okay.
I make a motion to use 18,265.
Don't we have to vote the one down? We've got
No,
a second already.
You-
So there's a motion on the table, Jeff's motion needs to be voted on.
And seconded. Yeah.
Or it can be amended, and I'm open to that.
Or you can suggest a motion to amend Jeff's original.
Okay.
motion.
Yeah, all right, I move that we amend my original motion
Okay,
to
that
take
works.
$18,265.12 out of the emergency reserves to cover the cost of the emergency project and to offset the $10,000 from the budget would help offset the cost of that.
Second.
Thank you, David. Any more discussion? All in favor
All in favor of the amendment?
of the
Okay.
amendment? Yes. All in favor of the amendment?
Now, don't we have to take a vote of the original,
Yes.
which has now been amended?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now the original motion has now been amended. You voted to approve the amendment, now you have to vote
On
to
the-
approve the whole thing now that it's been changed.
Somebody make a.
I make a
So
motion
moved.
to do what you just said.
No, we
It's
were
already
good.
on the table to approve the amendment.
To approve the amendment.
Approve the amendment as amended.
As amended.
We don't need a motion.
We
It's
don't need a
already
motion.
there.
It's already there.
Call for the vote.
No.
I'll just vote.
Jerry seconded it. I heard Jerry.
You do.
Yes.
For,
Because
we
you're.
just voted on the amendment,
You approved
Yeah,
the
and
amendment.
now
We
you're going back
approved
to
the
but now
amendment.
we're proving it, original motion as amended is what we're
Yes.
doing.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
And we have,
And-
we have a.
You have a first, you have a second,
Second.
now you can call for the vote.
We're not discussing it anymore.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think we're done.
Okay.
Who was the second?
Jerry,
Jerry.
you're welcome. Any further discussion or confusion?
Thoroughly.
All in favor? Nine.
It's been a while since we've had to amend a motion, so we're out of practice.
Okay.
Okay.
Hopefully this will be a little bit easier, this next one up. Okay, so, in your board packet, you can see that we've provided you with a chart of, which demonstrates the steady increase in the number of, new home building permits that are being issued, and it's just going through the roof. What the water department is requesting is that we add an additional, this would be our 6th water meter install team. To pay for that, we anticipate that the number of additional meters installed this year will be up at least by $100,000. So that additional revenue from those additional 100 meters will bring in $485,000. We are requesting that we spend $72,000 on wages, insurance, taxes, and benefits. That is a 6-month number. The annual number will be $142,000. And an additional $10,000 in small tools. All of this will come out of the operating budget. So we're just putting the board and the community on notice that we will be over in those two categories. In addition to that, we are requesting a capital purchase of $110,000 for a new service vehicle. And also we want to put the board and the community on notice that we will in all probability have to purchase a new dump truck, trailer, and backhoe in the 2026 budget cycle. I've included Charlie's email explaining this, and we have provided a suggested motion, which is just for the capital purchases at this time. And it also references the operating budget.
A motion?
I make a motion, give the water department the authority to exceed their 2025 operating budget by $81,000 and to make a capital purchase of $110,000 for a new service truck with the understanding that we anticipate the installation of extra water meters over the original 2025 budget estimate will generate sufficient additional revenue to cover all of these added costs.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Second.
Thank you, Deborah. Any further discussion on this one? Go ahead, Jeff.
I think it's we have to do this in order to provide the product that we offer to our community as a water department. So, yeah, it's money being spent, but I think it's money that's justified to be spent.
JB?
Just a comment to remember what was said in the work session. This is important because we're getting ahead of the game here. We're getting ahead of the progress and we're trying to stay ahead of it.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. Any further conversation? All in favor? 9-0. Thank you.
Last item, the golf committee has recommended another term for Jerry Foster and Dave Armstrong, who are currently serving on the committee.
Motion to affirm a nomination for Jerry.
I make a motion affirming the nomination of Jerry Foster to the golf committee.
Thank you, Jackie.
Second.
Thanks, Jeff. Any discussion about Mr. Jerry? Nope. All in favor? We really have to make this one?
Yeah, this is, we might have to debate about this one in a little while, this next one.
Motion to affirm the nomination of Mr. Dave Armstrong.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, JB. There's a lot of conversation to be had about him, but we won't go there. All in favor of Mr. Armstrong on the golf committee? 9-0, thank you. Is there anything else before we go into the announcements? Okay, yep, JB?
Maybe this should come up at a different time, and
Okay.
if so, tell me. But you know, a lot of organizations now are using consent items. So things like voting for the board, the replacements on these committees could easily be used in a consent agenda. Maybe we talk about that later, but I'd like us to think about it because it works. And you can always, if you don't like what's on the consent agenda, you can always pull out that item and vote on it separately. So I'd just like us to think about that going forward.
Thank you. Once again, Jerry, it's been a pleasure. Thank your time to the community.
Enjoyed my time here, 100%. I think we've made some big adjustments, and I'm proud of them. And I think y'all do well.
Thanks, sir.
And that's not for your wife, they're both for you.
I'm not gonna tell Peggy that that was not for her.
I'm not either.
He's not either.
Also, Jerry, on behalf of the management team, thank you for your 6 years of service on the board. We appreciate it very much so, and your support.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Anything else before we go to the announcements? Okay. New and returning board member tour. Dates have changed. June 10th at 9 a.m. in the lobby of the Country Club, ending at approximately 3. It's a long day with Tom. Where are we going here? Community assessment information meetings, June 2nd at BVRC at 4 p.m., June 16th at Branchwood at 10 a.m., and June 18th at Metfield at 4 p.m. These are informational meetings to discuss the upcoming assessment vote. New and returning board orientation, date changed as well, Friday, June 20th at 9 here in the boardroom. This is a closed meeting. It will end at approximately 2. Rules and Regs meeting, Thursday, June 12th at 1:30 here in the boardroom and via live stream. Board of Directors GM meeting, this is a closed meeting, is Thursday, June 12th at 2:30 here in the boardroom. Board of Directors work session, June 19th at 9 a.m. here in the boardroom and live stream. And Board of Directors regular session, June 26th, Thursday here in the boardroom and live stream. And if that is all, we're adjourned.